And we're live! Hello, everybody. My name is Tetsu Young from Ask Tetsu. I want to welcome you to Raising Multilinguals Live on our penultimate month of the year, November 2nd. So let me throw it to my colleagues.
And hello, everyone. My name is Utelima Haribol from Utis International Lounge. Good evening, good morning, good afternoon, wherever you are connecting from.
And welcome from me as well. Lovely to have you here. Today we have another highly interesting topic, which is very important for multilingual families. We are speaking about maximizing the value of weekend language schools for all the family, including the dogs, because they can choose a language too. We have three guests today. We have two from the Finnish language schools abroad. We have Veera Toivonen. Welcome, Veera. She's the chairwoman of the board for the association that supports the Finnish language schools. And then we have Sari Kiddle, who is a teacher at the language schools, and she comes with us from Frankfurt in Germany. And Veera, you're in Finland, aren't you?
I'm in Finland, yes, thank you.
Good, thank you. Over to you, Tetsu.
All right. So I have somebody who's living pretty close, right in Montreal, but she's originally from Japan. Her name is Naoko Kinoshita, or in Japanese, it's actually Kinoshita Naoko Sensei, which means teacher. And she is from the Japanese Center for Language in Montreal. And I think she's been in this area for quite a few years now. So I think we'll kick off the questions and let each of our guests tell us about their respective language schools and give us an overview so that we get a good background to start things off. So let me put up the first question already. And let's start with Naoko. Is it okay if we start with you? Tell us about your school, a quick overview of the programs, what kind of students you have, and anything you think is relevant to the discussion.
Okay, so I'm Naoko. I work for the Montreal Japanese Language Center. I'm teaching grade 5 now. They are 10 years old. We are a heritage language education institution of the non-profit organization that has been in the business for over 45 years. And our students, children aged 3 to 17 years old, and who learns Japanese as a heritage language, and adult who learns Japanese as a foreign language. In the normal time before the corona, we are the older kids about 250, and the adult students are about 50 people. The program focuses on the language and the cultural inheritance, and mixed with the Japanese school textbook. And we're teaching in the morning from 10 o'clock to the 12 o'clock.
Is that every day or is that just weekends?
Just weekend on Saturday morning only, yes.
Okay, and what about our Finnish colleagues, Sari or Veera?
Well, I can say something general. I represent over 40, we are in 45 countries, these Finnish language schools, and we have approximately 3,000 students altogether all over the world. And it's more or less the same. And Naoko said that these schools, they gather on Friday evenings or Saturday mornings for 2 or 3 hours at a time, twice a month or 3 times a month, depending on the country and the city where they are. And what about the system that they are accomplishing in a way? Some schools are based on music and drama, for example, and in some only. So they play and they have musical music groups, or they have only playing in Finnish. And then if they get older, or if they are if they try to attend, if they try to accomplish, for example, an exam in Finnish, then they will have more rigorous programs in different levels. It depends really on the city and the country where they are, what kind of curriculum they follow. We have one common curriculum for everyone, but it's not mandatory. So schools can take parts that suit them, and then they can do according to their local system and what suits the local Finnish families. Do you have something? Yeah, sorry.
No, I was going to say, did you say Friday and Saturday, not Saturday and Sunday?
No, it's Saturdays. And I know, for example, in Canada, for example, in Toronto, we have a Finnish language school that they gather every Friday evening. They have been discussing about the day, but I know that it's been like that since many, many years already, that they have Finnish language schools Friday evenings. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
May I ask what age groups they are targeted to? Because
they are from 3 to 18.
3 to 18.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
And perhaps Sari would go into some of this, but I was wondering about the programs that you were talking about. I heard the word music before I heard the word grammar, for example. And that's really interesting that you're not focusing just on the language aspect per se. Is that like the characteristics of your school? You go into other things and learn in that language rather than learn the language?
Yeah, it's more or less, it follows more or less the Finnish basic education curriculum. Mm-hmm. Of course we have grammar, of course we have like the core subjects as such as well, but we start with play and music and things that we do something with the language instead of sitting in one spot and learning the rules of language.
Mm-hmm.
Very, very much like the Finnish school education system overall.
Yes,
yeah.
More or less, it's more about doing and learning by doing than actually reading the rules by heart.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, that's I always think it's good to focus on, especially for the younger ones, really to focus on the fun part and focus on what they like and try to make something integrate learning into that. So it's right down my alley, so to speak, this type of things. And what are some of the different family backgrounds that you cater to? I mean, other than immigrants and expats, I suppose, but are there any other types of backgrounds that you specifically cater to in your school?
Do you want to, Sari, you can answer if you can tell about your school, for example, and then I can add something on general level if needed.
Sure, why not? So I'm representing here Frankfurt School of Finnish, and we are also 45 years this year, so it's the oldest Finnish language school in Germany. We have around 100 pupils at the moment, age between 0 to 17, actually.
Mm-hmm.
And not only teaching on Saturdays and Fridays, we do try to fix the dates that they suit the families as well as possible nowadays. So we have Tuesdays, Thursdays, Fridays, and Saturdays.
Wow.
Some lessons, not every day for everyone, but so that families can choose their own suitable timetable.
Mm-hmm.
The families we have a third generation Finns whose grandparents or great grandparents moved to Germany, but we also have families who've been in the country for 2 years or staying for 2 years, and our kids are fluently speaking Finnish, and they've been away from the country only for a couple of months before they coming to Germany and out to Finnish school with us, whereas some kids only hear occasionally with the grandparents, maybe once in a month, a language or the cultural interest outside of the Finnish school. Therefore, it is actually quite nice them to be able to come to the language school and see other who have the similar backgrounds.
Absolutely, that is so important for children to see that it's not only mommy's language or daddy's language, but there are others speaking it too. You mentioned 0 to, was it 17, 18? So what do you focus on with the under 1-year-olds?
Well, we have a group below 3 years old, because the Finnish government is really actually supporting the children above 3 years old in the language school basis, or the mother tongue or home language learning. And we as a school have decided that it's really good to get the children to come into Finnish school or get part of the language learning, or to actions doing with the language or home language already as early as possible, to make it as natural stepping into the languages. And we have parent children groups. We have activities there. They very often nursery rhymes, singing, little bit theater, more physical activities, but always the language is there around. Handcraft, they are very much loved. And then they're having actually together, after a small short session with the babies or the smaller ones, we have only 45-minute sessions, so not very long. And afterwards they gather as the families together, having a breakfast or little snack or picnic together, and getting to know each other, and building their first connection to other children from the same backgrounds.
Wonderful.
Did I hear you correctly? You said there are people who come in just on a ad hoc basis, or maybe like visitors who would come in.
So only ad hoc. So some people come only sometimes, so they don't come regularly. Is that also possible? Or?
Most of the families do come regularly. We try to make it a regular part of the routines that everybody should come, but there's no if you can't make it once in a while, then that's also okay. But we have a year-round memberships, so often people are coming every time.
I see.
And making it fun and interesting and motivating, so we're welcoming them happily every time.
Fantastic.
I see. Fantastic. So, Naoko, perhaps I could throw this over to you from the type of families that your school would cater to. These.
Yeah, and most of the students are children of the permanent resident first generation, and either parents are French, English speaking Canadians, and or immigrants from Africa, Asia, and Europe, and South America, and it's very, very multicultural. And I think there are about 2 to 4 family language, each family, I think. So, for example, my home is almost three language at home.
Mm-hmm.
So it's mainly immigrants who are like yourself, one Japanese parent and a local or another country parent.
So
that's the biggest group.
Yeah. So sometimes half the parents are the Japanese, but sometimes like both parents not from Japan. Like for example, origin from like China and the Canadian, but they who used to live in the Japan before.
I see.
The kids studied this Japanese, and they keep Japanese in the Canada also. There are many kind of situations.
Wow.
So do you also take, let's say, a Canadian family that have no Japanese connection? Would they be able to come and learn some Japanese with you as well, or do you expect some kind of Japanese connection?
I think the children's classes, most of the children is already mother tongue. The Japanese is mother tongue, so that's why they already understand that we can communicate each other. But the most Canadian children who lives in the Canada origin, so they're running for the second language for the Japanese, so that's why it's different. So they cannot go to the adult class yet, so we don't have that for the children for the Japanese class yet.
Understand. Thank you.
What about expats? Are there lots of expat families in Montreal? I don't know if there's a big Japanese companies in Montreal, so I assume there's not many expats, but maybe professors, who come to as a visiting professor, or somebody who's here on a temporary basis. Do you see that a lot?
Not many, but
many?
for
Okay.
example, like consulate or company
Yeah.
or like doctor's family, they usually go to the hoshuko, means
Uh-huh.
the government Japanese school, means in the only once a week on the Saturday, but they're running more longer, like a Japanese curriculum. It's a
I see.
different school.
I see. I see. Okay. And so if we get into a little bit of more raw stuff, I guess, how are your schools funded? How do you keep it going for 45 years? I mean, this must be a sustainable strategy there. So we'll maybe just start with Naoko right away.
Okay, so we were very, very small 45 years ago. It's maybe few students, a few families, but now we are kind of 250. But it's after Corona, we gained 30-40%. But basically, it is covered by the parent tuitions. And after this special situation, we started to receive the subsidies from the Quebec government or external organization. So, for example, like only for the book, subsidize, or we choose that depends on the topics subject.
Wow, so the Quebec government actually subsidizes a part of the school.
Yeah, it's like only it's not for the school, it's for the NPO.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so they have a kind of special
okay. I see,
subsidized system.
Mm-hmm.
They're helping the NPO organization.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting. And what about our Finnish schools?
Yeah, well, actually, at the moment, I'm really dealing with this thing because every autumn around this time we do sort of reports and clarifications for the Finnish government, for the Finnish government, and then they decide towards the end of the year how much they will give money to these Finnish language schools abroad. And every year we wait for the answer, and we never really know how much they give. And so far, it's been quite okay. We receive a good funding. It's not enough, of course, for the schools because we have so many schools around the world. But we receive some funding for the schools so that they can basically pay their salaries and their rents. But then all the other things that they need, for example, for the teaching and for the students, they have to fund themselves. So a big part comes from the government, Finnish government so far. So thanks for that system. And then some part comes from the school itself. Naoko mentioned there like some companies or other society associations that might give money, but normally in Finland we don't know that. We would hope to have a big companies who could donate a lot of money to our system, but so far we haven't received any. So it's basically the government, and our association tries to do the thing for all the Finnish schools abroad, and then the locally. Sari, you can tell what you do to get the rest of the funding.
One more question about that. So, do you use resource? I don't know if you use books. So, do these books are they do they come from Finland? Are they paid for, or do parents or do you even use books? I don't know.
Part of the groups they use. Sari, you can answer because I know that in Frankfurt you've been really creative with the money things and how you collect the money. So because all the schools have to collect part of their money themselves. Yeah. Government can fund all, but Sari, you have something, so you can continue.
Okay, so yes, actually, to be able to get the governmental funding, you need to do as a school something, your own fundraising, which is obligatory for the schools. So you can do it as collecting up some sort of a membership fees. For us, it's really important that the money isn't the issue for the families, not to bring their children to learn the home language. So we have kept the membership fees as low as possible, and they are actually very, very, very low at the moment. On top of that, you have a different kind of fundraisers. You have very creative ideas. Some schools have done a cooking books or recipe books with the Finnish recipes translated in the local language, and they're selling them as their fundraiser. We have a Christmas market, the big thing in Germany. So
Really good one.
Yes, all the Finnish schools in Germany would for sure have one Christmas market, or at least a little creative market. Bake sales, book fairs. You just need to be really creative with that. Imagination is your limit there, how to collect up some money. But it's mostly from the fundraisers instead of
Direct donations.
direct donations.
Yeah. And about the school books, it's that money that normally schools use to get books for everyone. So no parent has to go to a store and buy something, but then it's done collectively by the teacher or by the schools where they are. And not every group use a book. We have our own brand new book called Kotisuomea. It means like home Finnish for those who are in Finnish language schools, and it's free of charge. We did it a couple of years ago. And then some groups who are advanced, for example, or they have might be, for example, too little, too young to read, for example, they might have some books that they then order from Finland from private companies.
Yeah. I have a question to Veera. You mentioned that the Finnish schools are in 40 different countries. Let me just put you in the spot. And you have more than 3,000 students. Now, let's assume that I have a family, a Finnish family, and I am supposed to move to a place and there is no school, no Finnish school yet. What are the requirements, the minimum, amount of children, and what age groups? Well, age groups, I imagine those that you mentioned, but what could a parent do if they want to found a new school? How would they go?
Well, that's a good question. We have every year these questions when a family moves to a place where a Finnish school doesn't exist yet.
Yeah.
So they contact us or another association in Finland to ask just these questions that you asked. And then we reply that they have to have at least 6 children, at least 6 kids. And in order to get the governmental funding, these kids have to be between 3 and 18 years. So if they have, for example, 6 kids who are 4 and 5 and 6 years, and then in addition to that, they might have 4 kids who are under 3 years. That's fine by us, but to get the government funding, they only get for those kids who are between 3 and 18. So they can have more kids, but they are not then funded by the government. Then they have to have some sort of an administration. So they have to have a plan for the upcoming year, and then they have to have a budget, like how they are going to use the money and what kind of curriculum they will follow. So they have to have a plan for the budget and for the subject that they are going to teach. Okay. And then they just let us know. There are a couple of forms to fill in, but as many things are in Finland, we have quite low bureaucracy. So I would say it's rather easy to start it. It doesn't have to be, it has to be organized, but it doesn't have to be hard. So basically any mother who is interested in having a Finnish language school for her kids and then her friends' kids who live in the same city and they organize themselves, that's a way to start.
So with regards to the teaching, like in Finland, sorry, Ute, did you want to continue on that?
Yeah, I wanted to add something because I know some other kind of systems, not the Finnish, but the Italian, for example, they need to have, depending on where it is, between 5 and 10 children. And then especially the curriculum, you mentioned that they can actually choose maybe what they want to teach, if I understand you right well. So that is a difference maybe to others. I don't know who is following us and what their languages are, but I think that differs from language and system and government to government and the kind of funding that they have. because sometimes the curriculum is given by the funding government, and there are some obligations that they have to meet certain milestones and certain, apply certain kind of teaching methods as well. But this is not the case for yours, right?
No, of course. Yes, sorry. Of course, they have to teach some like things related to Finnish language or Finnish culture and Nordic values, for example. So it can't be anything between between earth and sky, but it's quite free, I have to be honest. But then many of them, most of our teachers, most of the schools are very serious about what they do. And we have this really old traditions with trusting teachers, even in our basic education system in Finland. So when they create their system, we of course read it through, and in many cases, most of the cases, it's quite it follows quite well our curriculum that we have created for all the schools. But as you mentioned, there are no such obligations that they should follow this and this rhythm, or they should have this and this subject certain dates, or they have to have testing every once in a while. That's true. We don't have that.
Yes, and you, sorry, Rita, the last question, then I leave it up to you. And I understand that it's not required, and then the parents who would form this kind of school, if there is a new one to be formed, are there any kind of requirements about teacher education? Do they have to be teachers, or can they be parents? Just parents?
They can be,
help?
They can be parents, because it's impossible to have formally educated students in so many places at the same time. So very often teachers who are organizing the school, they have some background in working with kids or children. They work in early childhood education normally, or have worked in Finland, or then they are primary school teachers. But it can be anything. You don't have to have the formal education to be a teacher in a Finnish language school, but you have to be motivated and be proud of your Finnish roots, so to say.
That was actually exactly the question I was going to ask, Aute, so thank you for asking that. Because in Finland the requirements are quite high to become a teacher and to be a teacher. So I suppose I can imagine that it could feel quite daunting for a parent to start a school. So I presume they get lots of support from you and other Finnish schools then as well.
Yes, we give a lot of support, and we have a lot of questions on how to organize the teaching. And luckily we have teachers like Sari, for example, who have been working. Sari hasn't been there 45 years as her school has been, but those teachers who have like 20 years already in a Finnish language school, and those teachers are really enriching the whole environment, because they have such good experiences already to give to others. So yes, but it might be intimidating for some to start. They are, but am I capable of doing something like that? But normally they are. Then bit by bit, when they find the courage, they become excellent Finnish language school teachers.
Fantastic, thank you.
I'd like to know the same about the Japanese Language Center. Naoko, are your teachers all well-trained teachers, certified teachers, or parents who have some background, or what's the criteria for teachers?
For myself, I was not being a parent, because I started to work before almost 14 years ago. So then I was not a parent, but the timing, most of the teachers from just they have just permanent resident, they're staying in Canada, and they're working for another company, or part-time or something, because of the Saturday morning. So then but now our population is increasing, so we need more teachers. So then the organization asked the parents, please be the teacher for the kids. We need more teachers, and then now I think a majority is the parents being the teacher. So we don't need a kind of a teacher license or necessary to to teacher skill like in Japanese. But as Vera said, like we need a kind of special motivation to teaching the kids, because it's very kind of specific special education for the heritage language. So it's not like our background education, but it's kind of a new, but it's kind of really mixed. So we really need a kind of patience and need to find a new idea and running every year. So it's kind of many tasks for the teachers, but only for 2 hours. So that's a kind of difficult to be teacher for everybody. So now we have a problem like how to find a teacher now.
So just a question about the teachers too. So are parents doing this on a voluntary basis, or do they also get some kind of compensation?
We have a compensation, but it's very it's not high wage actually. I cannot say that a big one. So, but actually more like only the how do you say? It's not like a teacher as in Japan. So, but like how do you say? Sorry, I lost my head. I'm sorry.
You can say it in Japanese. Tetsu can help in Japanese.
Tetsu can translate, no problem.
But I think it's her train of thought that she lost, not the translation itself.
So basically, they are not on a salary, but they do get some kind of compensation, but it's not comparable to what a teacher would get in Japan, I presume.
Yeah, and I think Veera wanted to add something about the teacher training.
Yes. Because we were talking about if they have the license or if they have formal education and how they start teaching. In addition to that they can send us questions and then we help them and other teachers will help them. We have these yearly teacher training days in Finland, in Helsinki. So, and the program is made by our Board of Education. So we have quite high-level people working on the program each year, and those training days are 2 days, and they are open for all the teachers. They can come to Finland, and then they can attend these days. Normally, they are on their summer holidays in Finland, for example, in the beginning of August, and then they come from their holidays, of course, to spend in Helsinki and have training for 2 days. And then we have in some countries, especially in Germany, and for example in Canada and in States and Switzerland, they have their own local teacher training days, which can be also partly funded by the governmental help. And those local training days are also helpful for the new teachers. We have these annual training days, both internationally in Helsinki and then locally in different cities in countries. So that was all that I wanted to add on the professional career, so to say.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you for that. I do feel that it's really interesting how the money discussion sort of developed, because I find that it reflects kind of the cultural nuances here, how a Finnish government would actually just fund, at least partially, your cultural and language schools outside of the country, whereas I believe the Japanese government does not fund the Japanese Language Center, but instead Naoko said that there was funding from the Quebec local government, which is also interesting. So I kind of feel that this the sort of the cultural attitude towards the education of languages and culture sort of shows up here, doesn't it?
Absolutely. May I share a comment by Nina? In our Finnish language school, we have a teacher who is also teaching in a real school, and that is great. As the group is small, we learn a lot through activities such as cooking together, playing, or letting kids express themselves. The weekend schools are very important for the whole community, as parents are needed in fundraising and organization. It's what you mentioned before, right? Thank you for the training sessions from Finland. So I think Nina is, if I'm not mistaken, in Belgium. Rita, you know?
Yeah, yes, she's in Belgium.
She's in Belgium. Thank you, Nina, for your comment.
Okay, so let's sort of get away from the money talk and come back to more about the actual students. You know, what age groups are the most popular? I mean, we have a wide range. So, what are the most popular age groups that you guys have? Perhaps we can start with Veera. You're right on.
Yes,
on
well,
screen.
I will handle this to Sari, who is working actively with the kids, so you can answer. And I know that her answers are more or less the overall picture that exists in any other country. So go ahead, Sari.
Yes, I think it is applying for every school around the globe, or every Finnish school around the globe. The most common age group is between 3 and 12 years old. As soon as the day schools start to go very time-consuming or deeper learning, I think lots of kids are dropping out from the language schools on that point. So until they're 12, they're coming to home language schools.
Is there like a consistent drop as we go, like 3, 4, 5, kind of a downhill?
No, it's actually when the secondary school starts, it's actually quite dramatic drop.
Oh, okay.
The whole group of kids in 1 year.
Okay.
Oh, right.
I see. What about the Japanese school, Naoko? Is this mostly the young kids also?
Yeah, I think almost the same as the Finnish school. Like the largest number of the people in the kindergarten class, and they're from 3 to 5 years old. But after elementary school, it's the grade 1, grade 2, grade 3, grade 4. It's my grade 5 class is now it's almost its average is 10 people. So it's like more, I think secondary is more, I think lower percentage of the population, but because of the same reason, like home school is more kind of important and difficult, and they're also taking other like sports course or something, they choose that what they want. So then maybe I think language school is kind of dropping off from their motivation or something.
Yeah. Well, kids are human, right? They have their activities, and as they grow older and older, they want to play more hockey. They want to do more of this, do more of that, and that squeezes out other priorities, I guess.
And also, I think as long as children are small enough, then parents can say, well, I'm taking you to the school, and that's it. I don't know if that's what you find, but the older they get, that process is not that straightforward.
Yes.
Indeed. As a side question that just sort of popped up in my mind, did the past 2 years with the pandemic, did that affect your demographics, or somehow the operations of the schools over the past 2 years? Some striking pattern? Perhaps Naoko, you're on screen already.
Okay. Sorry, I didn't understand well the question. Please.
Yeah, it's just over the past 2 years with the pandemic.
Okay.
How has that, affected your school in terms of the demographics or the curriculum or operations?
Yeah. So we start. Our school starts from the April, so it's kind of irregular. So most of the school starts from the September. So that's why we are kind of just like almost finishing our term, the year. Then we had to start the new term, but the kind of it's too sudden. So that's why we discussed a lot. Then we started the volunteer base, and the 3 months we like kind of testing the online class for the kids. Then the teacher, when study and getting used to that, using the Zoom and the Google Meet, then we start real start from the September. So we did the whole year did the online class. So
Yeah, just
then so the most of the, I think that the time, I think the 40% as a population the gain. So because of the online class,
population gain. Yeah, I was just gonna say, some good things happen through this pandemic, and I was thinking perhaps this could be actually an incentive for many people to join these classes. I mean, for one thing, they have less of formal classes. So is that the same pattern that you guys saw for Sari and Veera?
Yes, actually, as the pandemic did involve Finland as well, and Finland went to lockdown as well at the same time around Germany, so it was beneficial for us. Everybody were sharing the information, how to create the online classes, how to make them creative, and that was globe-wide networking, very, very fast and supported by the teachers in Finland, and we got the online lessons going surprisingly fast.
Wow.
Must say within weeks, and the creativity of the teachers was very, very impressive on the beginning of the pandemics. For some schools, it was a definite drop down of the pupil. There's a lot less students because online lessons are, after a while, quite tiring, especially when the day schools went on online as well, and then there's hours and hours on screen. And that was the point where some students started to drop out of school. But on the other side, there was a lot of students who weren't able to schedule the language schools for their normal weekly routines. They were able to actually attend to online lessons. And we have kept some online lessons. We call them so-called hybrid lessons nowadays. That we have started with a couple of groups that doing online lessons, but they meet them once in a month in person. So it's combining. So it's something positive we took with us as well.
Mm-hmm. No, I can definitely see the pros and cons sort of affecting your demographics a little bit in terms of, well, not necessarily in terms of age, but people who live further. Like, for example, I live about an hour away from Montreal, and with all the other activities, it's just difficult for me to do this on a weekly basis, go into town and bring the kids to the school. But if it were online, then I would probably have given it more thought. Although my PhD supervisor, he's Japanese, and he lives in Quebec City, and he drove to Montreal every weekend to bring his daughter to the Japanese Center. Every weekend. Wow, that was lots of effort, but thanks to that, his daughter speaks perfect Japanese right now without ever living in Japan. So
good.
So all right, so let's continue on then. Let's continue on this the benefits for the students. What else do you think are really the strong selling points, the benefits that parents can expect from these language schools for the students? Want to start, Sari?
Sure, why not? I think the strongest benefit for the children and the families is to meet each other, meet the families in a similar situation, meet the kids with the similar backgrounds, with the same roots. This group feeling, group power is something that keeps the social connections are the things that keeping kids coming to the school week after week, year after year. As early as possible, when you get the connections or friends, the social connections from your language school, the stronger the motivation is for children to come. That's definitely what I see the most important.
Yeah,
Not only the language, it's the cultural background. Sometimes you can't get the cultural vibes of your heritage at home so colorfully as you would get them in the groups and
Yeah,
Because
once again, I really like the fact that you're not talking about, the hard skills of the language, the grammar or all that knowledge of the language per se, but it's more of the social skills, the social aspects of having a school like this, the networking and the friendships and all that. I think it's very, very important to keep the motivation going and keep the relevance of the language and the culture for the child. So thanks for that. Naoko, what do you think is the main selling point, the main benefits of these weekend language schools?
Yeah, I think exactly what she said, the same as our language school. It's more very important things. It's seeing each other and sharing our conversation and feel each other. And most of my students said, oh, we are going to see friends. So that's a very highest motivation. It's kind of optional things. It's like they're learning something. So I think it's good. For kids, it's very important.
Community.
Yeah.
Community.
Being community. Yeah.
We share our obstacles together, and it somehow just seems like a smaller obstacle when you're doing it together. So I'm glad we're all aligned. Then let's go to the other side of the coin. Then, what are the general problems that most kids and the parents face in their pursuit of their heritage language?
Is that okay to?
Sure, please go ahead. We are getting towards the end of the interview,
Okay.
so let's
yeah. So that's hard to how to say. It is used infrequently every day. So also in the social. So like kind of also the young kids is okay, but the elder kids are kind of losing the more how to speak Japanese. So it's kind of gain the motivation and feel kind of shame, to not the perfect Japanese. So it's kind of they feel very shy. So it's kind of hard to keep the motivation only Japanese. So they need to feel more like kind of special, like motivation with the friends, or like kind of like a Japanese manga or something. Their favorite things from Japan. So also, but the other hand, the parents they think they are going to learning something. So, but kids are kind of to seeing friends and having fun. But the parents expect, learning something more like Chinese characters more and like vocabularies. It's kind of it's different. So because I'm teaching at a classroom, so I wanted to make fun more and more less, studying a lot. But it's kind of difficult to between parents and the students and teachers, like making the class. So
so what you're saying, that the parents are setting expectations that are maybe higher than what you were expecting to offer within your teaching?
Yeah, so they feel if the kids start not speaking well, means like not learning well. So but it's kind of normal, I think, phenomenon, I think, for the kids, like especially elder maybe 10 years old, 12 years old. It's the home language is more, I think, more than the Japanese language. So but they have already inside, but they cannot explain. That's it. So but the parents hard to know their knowledge and their understanding level, and they can come back to the later, but the most of the parents expect now, only now. So it's really hard to explain to the parents. Also, each family has different time for the studying time and the homework time and the sports time, and I cannot say anything about that.
Yes, maybe I can mention something that I observed here in the Hague, Amsterdam area. We have several of these weekend schools also, and parents drive like 2 hours every weekend to bring the children to these schools. And what we observed was mainly that at some point, especially when the children start going to secondary school, it's like they feel that the gap between their language skills in that home language or heritage language that they are learning in the weekend, maybe for 2 hours in the weekend, is becoming bigger towards the one that they have in the school language. And especially when it comes to maybe reading something or, learning by heart a part for play or something, they feel they are not there yet. And it requires quite some, convincing, and also the motivation is really a very, very big part for the older children now. Is this the same that you observe as well? I understand probably yes. In both schools, you're all nodding. So,
Well, definitely, yeah. I think it would be a general trend. Once again, as kids have more and more of their own life, so to speak. This language aspect.
Yes, but it's mainly also that they cannot. The pace with which they read books, for example, is completely different. So they are not that motivated to read a Harry Potter in their home language if they are used to read it in English. The pace is much faster, and so they would rather choose maybe shorter text or not read at all. So, but Veera, I'm sorry, you wanted to say something.
Yes, I completely agree, and we have this, so to say, problem as well. We call it like how to teach teenagers, how to motivate them to come. And I would say that there is a gap between 12 and 15 years or so. And then when they get like past that, the roughest teenager years, then they start to realize again how good it is to know several languages. And then they start to get interested in their own roots. And then we have, for example, in Germany, and I know in France as well, those students that really then they really start to boost their language learning, and they go there again and they have completely different kind of ideas, because then the university life is coming closer. They might even think to going to Finland to university or continue their studies there. And then also if it's an expat family, there might be something, okay, within 2 years we are going back to Finland, now you should know something, and so on. So it's definitely a problem, as we have mentioned here. But then some pride ideas and some pride news are to be seen also, especially in the age group 15, 16, 17, 18, when they start to think of their own life and how to have more skills in order to be more in competitive world.
Yes, I think it's like that they become more conscious about what they have built up, and then they say, well, I actually am very good at Finnish now in your case, and maybe I can even study there or spend some time in Finland, and in order to be functioning in Finland, I need to be good at reading and all kind of different settings, and to foster their own skills, maybe their agency or their activation is a bit more than around 15 years old. Yes, exactly.
Yes, and then it's like it comes from the inside. It's then self-motivation instead of coming outside, so that someone else is like saying, now you go there.
It's a shift, right?
Yeah, but you have to do it until they're 12 or 13, and then have to wait perhaps, and then it pays off. Even though you have been a bad mom forcing your kids to go to this language school, but then it pays it off like later on. So we have to be patient. Sari, you wanted to add something?
Yes, I would like to add here a little bit for the motivation for teenagers, what's been working for decades in Germany, because this obviously isn't a sudden issue with the teenagers. It's been there for pretty much always. Over 35 years ago, the Finnish school started to do a group trips to Finland for the kids between 12 and 18. And they were spending 1 week in Finland, living with the Finnish host family and visiting the school, and actually using the language in a normal, natural environment. It's a very low level entering in the countries, but that is in the language, but it's definitely have motivated many children to come back to the language school or continue learning more. It's have given a nice boost, and it's something that it's been asked often.
It's a great
Wow.
idea.
Indeed,
Yeah.
indeed. And I think, you all bring up something that's really important, is to, as much as possible, let them do it, even if, for like Naoko said, some kids, they have it inside, they just can't output it. That's also a huge win. I always tell parents, this is called receptive bilingual. They understand, they just cannot speak it, but that's already a huge win. As Veera mentioned, later in life, if one day they decide I want to learn this language, they have that motivation. They already have a super head start on everything, and so I definitely, as much as possible, you're not like forcing them to do things, but I would just, if they're okay with it, just let them do it at their pace, and go as far as they can. It's going to be beneficial on the long run, definitely. So, all right, with that in mind, we are coming up to the top of the hour, and we have one, I guess, general question for our guests. We'd like to have you perhaps sum up our whole discussion in a message, in a recommendation, something that you can give to parents sending kids to your school or these weekend language school. What's something that you would recommend to the parents? Maybe start with who wants to go? Sari? Veera?
Sure, I'll go first. I would definitely recommend parents to bring their children as early years as possible, when they are even below 3, to build it into your weekly routine, like a grocery shopping. It's just seriously, it's just making it so natural part of your weekly routine that there is no questioning whether it's important or not, because it is just part of your routine to go there. And it's and always talk about the home language school positively to children, as a teacher in a school or as a parent at home. Always positive attitude.
Cannot agree more.
Mhm.
Veera, did you have something to add to that?
That's a really good conclusion. The routine things is really important. Then you don't have to discuss every week again, should we go there or not. So definitely that. And then it's about values. The whole family, I mean, both parents should agree on that's something that we both cherish and value, so that it's not only one parent thing, so that the parent who is, for example, Finnish, takes always responsibility of the Finnish school, but both parents are in the same thing, and it should be just like any other hobby in their daily life, as Sari mentioned. So that's something. And I wanted to add that even though sometimes it's challenging to put it in the schedule, it pays off late in the long run. Also for the parent, they might have a really, really big network within a language school. Also the parents who meet there and who can exchange and have even new friends. So it's a social growing for all, I would say.
Wow, I'm loving it because habits, it's probably the word that I use the most when I talk to parents in terms of getting kids to learn languages, raising multilingual kids. So I don't know, Naoko, do you have anything to add to all this? What do you recommend to parents?
I think they can choose their community in the future. So because they already have a home ground, like a French community and the English community and Japanese community, so they can choose when they feel like. So for example, so they already feel positive about the mother tongue. So then they can change by themselves and they can choose by themselves. So it means they have a more kind of a life choice, I think.
More options, indeed.
Yeah.
Indeed, definitely agree. Okay, so we are at the top of the hour. I do want to thank all our guests from the bottom of my heart. Thank you so much, Naoko, Sari, and Veera. It's a very interesting discussion today on the weekend language schools, and I'm sure many parents who watched today and watching the recordings will benefit from our interview today. Okay. So let's take a peek into our next session then.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so
very
much.
for
Thank
all
you
the
very much.
insights.
Now, the next session, let me put it up here, is we will be talking to Dr. Li Chuan Liu from Western Sydney University. And it's another very, very interesting topic. I'm so interested in this. It's about the effects of bilingualism in infancy and early childhood. Now, he's a strong believer that bilingualism has a robust effect during childhood. He's a proponent of setting up a good bilingual environment in order for kids to learn it naturally. And also another effect that's important is also the culture aspects of all this. So he will be talking to us next November 16th. It's in 2 weeks. But note the time is different. It's kind of really early for me. It's 6 a.m. in our area. But since he's from Sydney, that's pretty late for him at 10 p.m. So as usual, our European colleagues will have the golden hours. But next time, do note that there's a difference in time for this very important topic, effects of bilingualism in infancy and early childhood. Thank you very much, everybody. Thank you to our guests once again, and to my colleagues also. And thank you to all who have watched.
Thank you, Tatsus. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you very much.
Okay, take care. Bye. Bye. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
Hei, nähdään taas 2 viikon kuluttua. Ses om 2 veckor.
Sayonara.
With some next